Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihi kareem. Amma ba'd. Today I just want to talk about bid'ah, the term bid'ah, and two hadith that shows us the severity of bid'ah. And I'll go through a few examples of bid'ah. But we could be doing bid'ah in our lives, and we could be doing it unknowingly, which is really dangerous. And I'll go over why it's so dangerous as well, even doing it unknowingly. So before we go into what bid'ah is, I think it's important to know what Sharia is and what it compiles of. So Sharia, in particular Rasulullah Sharia. So every Nabi that came with their own Sharia. But all the Aqidah was the same. The fiqh, the jurisprudence might have had some differences, but the Aqidah of all the Nabi alayhi was all the same. The call to one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to follow the messenger of the time alayhi. So the Sharia of Rasulullah is whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. So the Quran and the way shown by Rasulullah, that is the Sunnah. And you hear Quran, Sunnah, Quran, Sunnah. Quran and Sunnah is the Sharia of Rasulullah. Whatever we know of Islam, it's from the Quran and Sunnah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us this Deen of Islam is complete. And even Rasulullah has said, have I given the message to you? And the Sahaba alayhi salam say, radiyallahu anhum say, yes you have, Ya Rasulullah. So this shows everything that we need to know is complete. The Deen is complete, and it was completed in the time of Rasulullah. And anything that came after, it might have been added on, but the complete Deen was done in the time of Rasulullah. Now, Rasulullah has told us we follow Allah, we follow His Sunnah, as in Rasulullah Sunnah, and we can follow the Sunnah of the Khulafa Rashideen. And in other narrations, follow Allah, follow His Sunnah, follow the Sahaba, and follow the followers, which are the Tabi'een. So this gives us a lot of scope to follow different ways as such. Even if we follow a Sahaba, is following the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Even if we follow just one Sahaba in particular, is following the Sunnah of Rasulullah, because Rasulullah has told us we can follow their Sunnah. So this is important to know. So So after that we get the schools of thought, and all the schools of thought are following the Quran and Sunnah. They derive ruling, which is like jurisprudence. They derive ruling from the Quran and Sunnah. And just a quick note, why is there so many schools of thought? And it's because Rasulullah done things differently at certain times. He might have done something this way. At other times he might have done something another way. So there's 4 main schools of thought, but there's so many other differences of opinion that are accepted. And all the 4 schools of thought in their original form are accepted, alhamdulillah. So and the first few generations are known as the Salafus Salihin, the pious predecessors. So when you hear this term, this is what it's meant by the early generation. So when they say we're following the Salafus Salihin, this is what they mean. So what is bid'ah then? So bid'ah is anything done after all of Deen is complete. All the lessons taught by Rasulullah, and anything that was added by the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, and maybe even the Tabi'een. Some say just carry off at the Sahaba, and some even include the Tabi'een, and some even say even the Tabi'een, the generation to come after the followers of the followers. So bid'ah is when something is added to the Deen after this time. So after this time. So what if someone added something in this time after the demise of Rasulullah? So after the demise of Rasulullah and someone added something, this would be called bid'ah hasana. So a good bid'ah. So anyone who done anything in this time, this period of time, the Salafus Salihin, the Sahaba and the Tabi'in, and maybe even the Tabi'in, then it would be regarded as a bid'ah hasana. But the door shuts there then for bid'ah hasana. So anything established in this time is bid'ah hasana, and you can't have bid'ah hasana after this time. So an example of bid'ah hasana is Tarawih. Now, Rasulullah done Tarawih when he done it for 3 days, and he didn't come out on the 4th day in fear that it might be for us, for the believers. But in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, there was no Tarawih. In the time of Usman radiallahu anhu, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar radiallahu anhu, sorry, and he established Tarawih. And he mentioned even this is a good bid'ah, so bid'ah hasana. So Tarawih became part of the Deen then. Every Ramadan, like it's sunnah of Umar radiallahu anhu, and also sunnah of Rasulullah. Remember I said, whatever the Sahaba have done, it becomes the sunnah of Rasulullah as well. Because Rasulullah has said, follow their sunnah. And just saying that becomes sunnah of Rasulullah because Rasulullah has said it. So every Ramadan we do Tarawih, don't we? Another bid'ah hasana that can be mentioned is that there wasn't a Quran in the time of Rasulullah. And you might think, like everyone reads Quran. So the Quran in the form of a book, a kitab, it was all written down on parchments and letters and all this, and it was all with different companions. So in the time of Abu Bakr in his Khalifat, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gathered all these Quran scriptures together. So he was the first person to gather all these letters and, well, not letters, but it was written down on paper and parchments and things like that. So he gathered all this. And then in the time of Usman radiallahu anhu, he actually put it into book form. So this also is a bid'ah hasana in the Quran. Like something all of us might have thought it was like done in the time of Rasulullah, but it was actually done after he left this world. And there's a few others that occurred, like a few other bid'ah hasana that occurred that the Sahaba started. The majority of them followed the Sunnah of Rasulullah as he taught it. Now the other type of bid'ah is bid'ah dalala, bid'ah of misguidance. So anything that comes after this time is regarded as bid'ah dalala, bid'ah of misguidance. And how we can recognize what is bid'ah dalala is we see if it was done, if Allah SWT told us to do it first, then if it was done in the time of Rasulullah, or he told us to do it, or he allowed it to happen if someone was doing it in front of him, or if the Sahaba done it, and if any of the companions started something, just like Tarawih, if someone started like a different ibadah or something, it would be regarded as bid'ah hasana because they started it. So we have to look in the lives of the Sahaba, and then we can even look at the lives of the Tabi'in, the followers, and if they done it. So if in any of these categories it was done, then we can accept it, and it wouldn't be bid'ah dalala. It would just be part of the Deen. So we can't add anything to the Deen. So Rasulullah has said, to the nearest meaning, if a person does bid'ah, it's rejected. If a person does bid'ah, it's rejected. So this means whatever you do and it's bid'ah is nullified. You don't get any reward for it, but you get the sin for doing bid'ah. Now, where does bid'ah come in, like sins even? I'll go through that as well. So in Surah An-Nas, Shaitan is described as the whisperer in Surah An-Nas. And the Mufassirin have said, what are the duties of this, the whisperer of Shaitan? What are the duties? What does he whisper into people's heads? So the Mufassirin have categorized 7 things that he whispers. And the first is that he tries his utmost best to make you commit shirk. Because this is the worst thing that anyone can ever do, is commit shirk. Because this is associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second thing is bid'ah. And why is bid'ah so bad? Is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah complete the deen. The deen was complete. So someone has come along and put something in the deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah didn't put. And they are saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah have forgot to put this in the deen. Indirectly they're saying this. And they're saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah have lied because they didn't put this in the deen. And as we know, a person who says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah has lied, they've committed riyah, which is minor shirk. And so the second one is bid'ah. The third one, and people think this is the first one, the third one is major sins. So the first is shirk, the second one is bid'ah, the third one is major sins. So major sins like murder and adultery and riba, all these things are major sins and they fall under major sins. And then it's minor sins. And then it's minor sins. And then Shaitan, so Shaitan will make you, try his best to make you commit shirk. Then he'll try his best to make you do bid'ah. Then he'll try and make you do major sins. Then he'll try and make you do minor sins. Then he'll try and make you waste your time. He won't make you do any good deeds. So he'll make you waste your time. And in this, you'll do bad deeds. Like all of us have spare time. In this spare time, are we not doing anything at all? Or are we doing something? A majority of the time, we're doing something, and majority of time is doing the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could be watching TV, listening to music. All this is the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this also falls under this category. And then the sixth is Shaitan will make you do the lesser of the good deeds. So there might be 2 good deeds or 3 good deeds, and he'll make you do the lesser, so you get less reward. And then the 7th is that he'll unleash the other shayateen and the jinn to mess with your minds and cause misery in your life and sadness and depression. And this also will make you lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah save us from all of these things. But this is the plan of Shaitan. So if we're indulged in any of these things, it's because Shaitan wants us to do these things and divert us from the attention of going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we only call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And he'll make us think, you're sinful and you're not worthy of Allah's to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he'll make you go to this person and that person and say, reveal all your sins to this person, or go to this person and tell him to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and divert your attention. He's got so many schemes, so many plots, and he'll make us think we're doing the easy way or the way where we'll attain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. But in fact, it's earning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath. And one of the things about shirk, now all these things, all the 7 things, the worst of them is shirk. And why is the worst is because shirk is something, when a person passes away and they have shirk in their account, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forgive them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forgive them. Even if they call themselves Muslim, even if they've done all the ibadah of their whole accountable life, but they have shirk in their account, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forgive them, and they'll never enter Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this throughout the whole Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all sins except shirk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all sins except so I say partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it's so severe to have shirk in our accounts. So we have to try our best to even learn what shaitan could be doing to make us commit shirk. Because he'll beautify in such a way that you think, oh, subhanAllah, I'm doing something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm getting pleasure for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but instead he might be making us do something that we're committing shirk. And the second one is bid'ah. And did I mention the hadith? Okay, so I mentioned a hadith. So I think I mentioned the one hadith that if a person does bid'ah, it's rejected. So this means it's nullified. Then another hadith is, and this is in a khutbah, in the Jummah khutbah, to be precise. And it's the Jummah khutbah that's mentioned every Friday. And I think it's the last part of it, of the first part, where Rasulullah tells us every bid'ah is misguidance, and every misguidance leads straight to the fire. Bid'atul dalala dalala fin nar. That should shake us. Allahu Akbar. That every bid'ah is misguidance. So if we have bid'ah in our account, we're misguided by the words of Rasulullah. If we have bid'ah in our account, we're misguided. And every misguidance is in the fire. So if a person dies with bid'ah in their account, wallah, they're going straight to the fire. Not because I said, not because the brothers in the masjid said, not because of the ulama have said, but because Rasulullah has said, and there's no truer words than Rasulullah. So if there's bid'ah in our account, it will take us straight to the fire and we're misguided. So we have to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove all the bid'ah, all the shirk in our accounts. We don't want to come to a stage where we've left this world and we turn up to the day of Qiyamah and we're clueless, like, why am I going to the fire? Why am I not ever going to Jannah? I've done so much good deeds. And it was shaitan who beautified the bid'ah and the shirk. And shaitan would say, I didn't make you do it, I just led you to it and whispered to you. Then he'll do one, he'll go away, and we're at loss, we'll be at loss. And we can't risk our whole iman on that, our whole deen, our whole life on this. So even if there's a doubt of a bid'ah being in our lives, we should take it out. If there's a doubt of shirk being in our life, take it out. If there's like an action that you might think, wait, this doesn't seem right, take it out. And even Rasulullah said, if you have doubt, then don't do it. Rasulullah said this in hadith. So this is a really scary hadith, and it's the khutbah of Rasulullah for Jummah, that every bid'ah is misguidance, and every misguidance is in the hellfire. So this is the second one, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive this if a person asks for forgiveness. And there's a chance that if you commit bid'ah, He may forgive you in the akhirah, but with shirk He won't forgive you. But we can't rely on this. We can't rely on going into the afterlife, because Rasulullah has told us we're going straight to the fire if we have bid'ah in our lives. So may Allah protect us from this bid'ah and shirk, and even major sins. If we die with major sins, there's a chance of us going into Jannah still. If we die with minor sins, all these other categories, there's a chance of us going into Jannah one day. But with these two, there's a chance of us never going into Jannah. May Allah save us. May Allah save us. Even I'm getting shivers just thinking about this. I don't even want to go even a second into Jahannam. This just reminds me, there's the story of Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah. Now, who is Abu Talib? He's the uncle of Rasulullah, but he didn't die a Muslim. And if you look at his amal, if you look at his good deeds will equate, mountains. And you think a person like this should go into Jannah. And I've mentioned this like a few times. If you collect all the amal of all the Muslims today, we can't even equate one amal of Abu Talib. And that amal was protecting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, something none of us have ever done. None of us have ever done. We might honor his name, we might do this, we might do that, but none of us physically protected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What great amal is this in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But everything is dependent on Aqidah, on your belief with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this person, Abu Talib, he associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just on this matter, he will never enter Jannah. And he was the beloved uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even Rasulullah used to be so sad that when he passed away, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you're not in any, you don't have the power of giving hidayah. I give hidayah, as in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives hidayah. And he was still so sad. Then he was told that he is in Jahannam, but he has the lowest level of Jahannam. And the lowest level of Jahannam is what Abu Talib will be getting. The lowest punishment in Jahannam, which is that his sandals will be made of fire. His sandals will be made of fire. Allahu. And the fire will burn his whole body until his brains boil. This is mentioned in the hadith of Rasulullah. And this will continue for the rest of eternity. And this is the lowest level of Jahannam. And this is what I think about, that I don't even want to go into Jahannam for even a second. I don't want to even go into Jahannam for even a second. I don't want anyone to go in. My family, friends, whoever I know, all of the Ummah of Rasulullah, I don't want anyone to go into Jahannam. And that's why I'm mentioning this, because something like this will take a person straight into Jahannam, a bid'ah. Now, I said I'll mention a bid'ah. So, before I mention a certain bid'ah, I mentioned Rasulullah has said we have 3 Eids. And these 3 Eids are Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and Jumu'ah. So every Jumu'ah is an Eid for us. Now, along the way, something called Eidul Miladun Nabi has come out. A new Eid. Now, it's gone so much into the Deen, into the religion, that people actually think it's part of the religion. And that's why I'm mentioning it, because people think it's part of the religion. And in fact, it's not. And the reason why we say this is because, as I said, if it's bid'ah dalala, we check if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us about it. Has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about it? No. Then we go on to the next stage. Did Rasulullah tell us about this? And he might have mentioned a few things about his birth, but he didn't tell us to celebrate the day. He's told us only to celebrate 3 days. And I mentioned Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and Jumu'ah. So did Rasulullah tell us to do this? And the answer is no, either. Now we got a bigger scope. There was 124,000 Sahaba, roughly. We got a bigger scope, and these are the lovers. No one loved Rasulullah more than the Sahaba. No one loved Rasulullah more than the Sahaba. Any sunnah that he done, they were first to do it. And they didn't leave sunnah out. Today we say, oh, it's only sunnah, we won't do it. But they said, it's sunnah, we need to do it. If it's sunnah, we need to do it. Is that us today? Now we think we love Rasulullah. No one loved Rasulullah more than the Sahaba. Now, as I said, there's so much scope for them have done something like this. That they thought, oh, we love Rasulullah so much, let's, honor him in a day where we celebrate his life and his death, his life and his birth. But even in the lives of the Sahaba, we won't find this. And even in the life of the Tabi'een. So someone might ask, where has this even come from then? If it wasn't in the time of Rasulullah or the Salafus Salihin. This was actually introduced 400 years after Rasulullah's demise. 400 years after, in Egypt, by the Fatimid Caliphate, which were the Shia. So it's actually a Shia celebration. And we shouldn't ever do anything that's told to us by the Shia. We follow our Quran, we follow our Sunnah, they follow their own religion. And the surprising thing was, Jews went to them and said, the Yahud went to them and said, you know, the Nasara, the Christians, they celebrate Isa alayhi salam's birth. They celebrate Jesus' birth, and so many people like it, and they celebrate, and they're happy, and they're joyful. Why don't you guys do something like that for your Prophet? Don't you love your Prophet more than the Christians love Jesus alayhi salam? And initially, even the Shia, they said, we don't do that because it's not part of our deen. And Shia are people who had so much bid'ah and shirk and everything. They lied everything from everywhere. And even then, they said, we don't do this. It's not part of the deen. But the seed was sowed. And they eventually started. And they would hold a day. And that's another thing. Where has the date come from as well? The date. So we know for certain the day Rasulullah passed away. We know for certain the day Rasulullah has passed away. But we don't know for certain the day he was born. We know he was born on a Monday. But if you look at the hadith, there were like 4 or 5 different narrations of 4 or 5 different dates in narrations of the actual date of Rasulullah's birth. And it was to no importance of what day he was born. And you might be thinking, why am I saying this? Astaghfirullah, why am I saying like there was no importance? Because there's no one loved Rasulullah more than the Sahaba, and none of them thought we need to find out the exact date that Rasulullah was born. That's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't see it as an important thing to find out. Like we're told, we've been given a night of power, the Laylatul Qadr. And even then, we don't know when exactly it is. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger has told us, search for it. Search for this night of power. It's in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. But where does Rasulullah say, search for the birth? Search for the day of my birth? It's because it's got no importance. He was born, and on that day, it was a special day. Wallahi, it was a special day. Wallahi is a special day in history, the day Rasulullah was born. But to celebrate every year, there's no importance. We can reflect on the seerah of Rasulullah, we can look at his sunnah throughout the year, we can follow his sunnah throughout the year. Alhamdulillah. But this isn't a sunnah of doing sunnah. This isn't a sunnah. So, as I was saying, there was like 4 or 5 different dates, and one of them was the 12th. Only one of the dates. So it could be, could not be. But for certain it was the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal that he passed away. Now this is where the date of his birth has come from. Otherwise, for 400 years, no one even gave any importance to it. All the scholars, all the Mufassirin and Muhaddith, there was no, they noted down that these are the dates that he could have been born on. And that's part of history. That's part of the seerah. But it was 400 years later that they said, okay, we're going to mark it as this date, and we're going to do this celebration on this day. So that's where it was created from. So that's why it becomes bid'ah dalala. Now 100 years after that, because this was in Shiaism, it sprung in the Sunni group. And how did it spring up? There was a king in the time, 100 years later, in Iraq, and no one liked this king. And he wanted the people to like him. So he asked his advisors, what can I do to make the people like me? And one of the advisors said, look, there's these guys who do milad. Why don't you do something like that? Maybe the people will like you. And the king done this, and he made a day where they celebrate the birth of Rasulullah. And lo and behold, the people liked him, because it was a day of celebration, and it was one of the things he tried to do to make the people like him, and it worked for him. So that's where it sprung into Sunni Islam, and from there it's just been going into proper into Sunni Islam. And so just a brief history on where actually Miladun Nabi has come from. It hasn't come from the Deen, it's come actually from the Shia. And a lot of bid'ah that we know, that if we look into, actually come from the Shia. And we have to be really careful what we do in our lives. And we have to even take a microscope and look at all the things that we do for our deen in our lives, because one thing can be a bid'ah, and we need to take it out. Because this can be a means of us going straight into Jahannam, and it's not guaranteed that we'll ever go into Jannah. So another bid'ah is this thing called salami, where people will stand in congregation and do durood to Rasulullah. Now there's nothing wrong with doing durood to Rasulullah. So why would this be called a bid'ah? So there's two different things that could be said about this. Now one is, if you don't see the standing as an act of worship, then this would just be a bid'ah, because Rasulullah didn't tell us this is a way to do durood. This is not a way to do durood. So this would be a bid'ah. So if we stand and do durood in congregation, we have to ask ourselves again, has Allah SWT told us, has Rasulullah told us to do this? Did the Sahaba do this? Did Tabi'in do this? And once we go through all of that, and I said there's a big scope in the lives of the Sahaba, that someone could have started this and said it's part of the deen, but as we find, it wasn't. So it would be a bid'ah, and to us it's so minor, we're just standing and doing durood. But because it's an action that's been put in the deen, and people think it's part of the deen, then it becomes a bid'ah. And now the other part, remember I said there's two parts to look at it. Now, if you look at it in another sense, that you say the standing is qiyam, and qiyam is an act of worship. An act of worship is only for Allah SWT. Qiyam is only for Allah SWT. Ruku is only for Allah SWT. Sujood is only for Allah SWT. Dua, calling upon Allah SWT, is only for Allah SWT. We can't call upon anyone. We can't call upon Rasulullah. We can't call upon shuyukh. We can't call upon our parents who have passed away. We can't call upon our grandparents who have passed away. We can't call upon graves in front of us. We can make dua to them. We can make dua for them. Astaghfirullah. We can make dua for them, but we can't make dua to them. We only make dua to Allah SWT. We only make dua to Allah SWT. We only call upon Allah SWT. So Qiyam, if you see it as an act of worship, then this becomes shirk. And this action alone, just standing to do durood, will take you out the fold of Islam. Because any act that you do that is shirk will take you out the fold of Islam. And this is so minor, we might think, how can something like this take you out the fold of Islam? It's because it's an act of worship. And then it goes further, and this is even more dangerous. Some people might even say, we're facing this direction because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is present. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is present. Now why is this dangerous? Because they are assuming, or they're believing, that Rasulullah is present. If he's present here, he can be present anywhere. This is omnipresence. And this is only the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this power of being present everywhere. His presence is everywhere. He knows everything in every place. Omnipresence is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if anyone believes even this, they're taken out of the fold of Islam. This is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if they can believe Rasulullah is there, or if someone is doing the same thing in another room, or upstairs, or, all over the country and all over the world, is Rasulullah's soul split, or multiple Rasulullahs all over the place? Or is he someone who just knows what's going on everywhere? However you think about it, it is shirk. Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this ability of knowing what's everywhere. So you can do an act of worship in this way, where you're in qiyam position and doing durood, which is shirk. Is an act of shirk. And if you believe that Rasulullah is in front of you, this belief takes you out the fold of Islam. So this is something so dangerous, but to us it might seem so minor, because we don't think we're doing anything wrong. It's not like murder, it's not like rape, it's not like, all these horrific acts of, violence and major sins. But in fact, it's worse than major sins, because all these other things just have to do with each other. When you do shirk and bid'ah, you're involving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're involving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're doing bid'ah, you're saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah forgot to add this in their deen. So that's why it's so dangerous. And we have to take all these things out. And if we have indulged in these things, we should take it out and do our shahada, renew our faith. Because we could die in this state. We could literally die in this state, and no one knows when they're going to die. So we should do it as soon as we can. As soon as we know, remove it, say, we're never going to do this again, and do our shahada. And another thing, actually, going back to Milad as well, there's 5 holy months. This just came up just now. There's 5 holy months, and so many people put so much emphasis on Rabi al-Awwal, when he wasn't even mentioning that all the months of the Hijrah calendar are holy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger have said, there's 5 holy months. But Rabi al-Awwal isn't even in this. But they put so much towards Rabi al-Awwal. And where has this come from? It's just, I don't know. But going back to, shirk. Shirk and bid'ah, it's the worst things that we could do. Some people might even say, when we go to a grave, or when we're calling upon Rasulullah, or when we're calling upon a sheikh or something, we're just asking them to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're just asking them to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we're weak in our deen, we're so sinful. We need to ask a pious person, like the Prophet ﷺ, or a sheikh or something. And this is if they passed away or they're not present. You can ask anyone to make dua for you. You can ask your mom, your dad, your brothers, the sheikhs, if they're alive, and you're going to them and asking them. You can ask them. There's no problem in asking others to make dua for you. But the problem is when you call upon someone to ask Allah. And this is something that people might not know of. And they put the term wasila on this, tawassul, wasila. And they say, yes, we're allowed to do this because it's wasila. So what they'll do, and they say because we're sinful. And like we can't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. So we'll go through these shuyukh and Rasulullah. But in fact, we can't ask anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, you alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. So we only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only He can help us. So this is a dua we make as well in Surah Fatiha. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. We even proclaiming this, and then others will still say, no, this is nothing. Auzubillah. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, this is nothing. We're allowed to do this. Auzubillah. Allah save us. We can't even add a single letter to the Quran. And if we do, we're taken out of the fold of Islam. We can't take a single letter out of the Quran. We can't take a single letter out. And doing this will take us out of the fold of Islam. We can't not believe in a single ayat in the Quran. And if we don't believe in an ayat in the Quran, we're taken out of the fold of Islam. We have to believe in every single thing the Quran says we have to believe in. So, what was I mentioning? Calling upon someone else. So they'll call on Rasulullah and they'll say, like Rasulullah, ask Allah to forgive me and, answer my du'as and this. And they'll put this as wasila. And they'll do this even for their shuyukh and other people. Like they'll probably go to graves and say this. So they'll say, we're not worshipping this grave, we're not worshipping Rasulullah, we're not worshipping the shuyukh, we're just asking them to intercede on our behalf. Now Rasulullah will intercede for us. Rasulullah will intercede for us, but on the day of judgment. And He'll only intercede for us if we followed His sunnah, His way. Because Rasulullah even then will reject. People will go to Him and He'll reject. He'll be like, I don't recognize you, you're not part of my ummah. And the reason I say this, because there's no sunnah in our lives. All our lives we call ourselves Muslim, but there's no sunnah in our lives. So this is why it's so important to adopt the sunnah of Rasulullah from what Rasulullah has taught us. Not what we think is sunnah and what other people have taught us is sunnah. What He has taught us. So what is wasila then? So wasila is allowed, but this is what wasila is. As I mentioned, we only turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we only call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when we're doing wasila. So wasila is, you're calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, answer my dua through your good attributes, through your attributes. You are the most forgiving, so Allah forgive me. You are the most merciful, so have mercy on me. All these things, all these attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, call upon Him with these names. And you can even do wasila through the names. So this is accepted. This is what wasila is. That you turn to only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you call only upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So another thing we could do with wasila is say, oh Allah, accept my dua through my good actions, through this good deed. So you can say, I fasted today, Ya Allah, please accept my dua through this fast. And I gave charity, Ya Allah, please accept my dua through this charity. So this is wasila as well. And then this is where people get mixed up and they turn it around, where it's so dangerous. So something that can also be done, you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, accept my dua on the good character of Rasulullah or the shuyukh, or if you're parents are good. Any good person, you can say this. Now people, they'll turn this around and say, we'll ask the person directly to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is shirk. This is calling upon someone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This falls under this category, that you're calling upon someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I mentioned, making dua is an act of worship. So we can only make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't make dua to anyone else. We can't make dua to anyone else. No one else, not even Rasulullah. Even though he's the greatest creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, we can't make dua to the creation. No creation, we can't make dua to any of the creation. We make dua to the creator, our maker, our creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We only make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And doing so, as in, if you call upon anyone else, this is shirk. And it takes you out of the fold of Islam. The whole world can call you Muslim, but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're no longer Muslim. And people do, as I mentioned in the beginning, people do this unknowingly. So their whole lives they'll be thinking, we're getting so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us sustenance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us health, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us long life, all this. But in fact, we've committed shirk and we've left the fold of Islam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still give sustenance, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distributes sustenance to everyone, even the non-believers. Just think about this. Even having this thought that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distributes His sustenance to everyone, even the non-believers, even the ones who worship the devil, even the ones that, curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the ones that are atheists, that don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all. He provides for them still. So having sustenance, having this, having that is no sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing you if He's giving you iman, and the correct iman. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you the correct iman, then whatever good amal you do is just being added on. If you don't have the correct iman, if your aqidah isn't correct, then whatever good deeds you're doing is nullified. Nothing's being accumulated in your account. So even if you think, on the Day of Judgment I'm going to have mountains and mountains, and you turn up, there's nothing there, because there's a shirk in our accounts. So Allah save us from all shirk, all bidah. Ameen. So, we can't call upon anyone. We only turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We only ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should all think, am I doing something that's bidah? Am I doing something that's bidah? Because any of us can be doing any of these unknowingly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran that shaitan makes you do deeds that you think is good. Shaitan makes you do deeds that you think is good. What's that saying? Like, it's scary that all of us think we're doing good deeds. So we have to check, is the good deeds taught to us by Rasulullah directly, or the Sahaba? Has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do this? If He hasn't, then we should take it out, ask for maghfirat, and don't ever do it again. And it's just a humble request for all of us to do this. Just check that whatever we're doing in our deen, make sure we don't, it's taught to us by Rasulullah. Now someone might say, but isn't technology bidah? Isn't, a camera, a shower, a car, all these things, isn't it bidah? Now, anything that's out of the deen is allowed. Anything that's out, when it comes to innovations, when it comes to technology and all this, as long as it's used obviously for the right manner, then it's allowed. But if someone says this specific thing is part of the deen, then we have to see, as I said, has Allah told us to do this? Has Rasulullah told us to do this? Has the Sahaba, has the Tabi'in? This is where we do this check. So having a camera, having a shower, having all these things are just means of making things easier. And what we should be trying to use, like we have social media today, we should be using it to propagate the deen. We should be spreading the Deen everywhere. We should be using social media, to spread the Deen. But instead we're sharing this and that, and I'm guilty of it as well. May Allah make it easy. But we should use it to spread the Deen all far and wide. And all of us can do this. All of us have like internet and data on our phones and something that we can share. So we should share what Rasulullah has taught us, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to do. And just, try and get people closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the further we go from the Deen, the more displeasure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. And you might be wondering why I'm wearing these glasses. I'm actually blind in this eye and partially blind in the other eye, visually impaired, as they say. I just had surgery in this eye. That's why I'm wearing it, if you want to know. Anyway, another bid'ah that people might be doing unknowingly, and this is something so common today, so common. Whenever it becomes Jummah, people say Jummah, then Mubarak, Jummah, Mubarak. Now, how is this a bid'ah? It's nothing. It's not act of worship. It's not, action. It's not action, ibadah or anything. How the way this becomes dangerous is, even though nothing can be nullified because there's no act, you're not doing anything for it, is the fact that a bid'ah will go into your account. Now, Jummah Mubarak is, we have to see, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to say this? Did Rasulullah tell us to say this? Did Sahaba tell us to do this? And we'll find they didn't. What they did was just greet each other, Assalamu alaikum, on Jummah. And then one of the things they would remind each other was say all the sunnah of the day, all the sunnah of the Jummah. So this is sunnah to do. This is actually sunnah to do on a Friday, to remind each other what to do on a Friday. And even a day before, you could say, remember to do this tomorrow. So some would say do ghusl, some would say go early to the masjid, some would say wear nice clothes. One of the main ones I say is read Surah Kahf. Why read Surah Kahf? Because Rasulullah was told us to read Surah Kahf on a Friday. And as I mentioned, to do a sunnah or say something that's sunnah, you get the reward of either 1 martyr or 100 martyrs. So imagine you saying this every single Friday. How much reward will you get in your account? So even this, you can accumulate. And what if we were only saying Jummah Mubarak, Jummah Mubarak? Now everyone's probably guilty of this. So even this we need to take it out. Because Rasulullah didn't do it, and the Sahaba didn't do it. And it can be logged into our account. So we might think, oh, this is a minor thing. We're going on the Day of Judgment as well. We're going straight into the fire. Why? Because just one little thing that we said will take us there. So we need to even be careful with statements we make. So this is just some nasiha, and hopefully just something to show awareness, because we can do it unknowingly. That's the thing. We can do it unknowingly. Oh yeah, something I wanted to mention as well. There's 3 types of people who are unaccountable. 3 types of people that are unaccountable. And this means they are unaccountable on the Day of Judgment. So one is the child before he becomes baligh. So the child before he becomes baligh. After that, he's accountable for everything else. Everything he does in his life after that, or her life, they're accountable for it. Then the other category is a person who is sleeping. So a person who in his sleep, he's not accountable for that time. And then the third is a person who can't think for themselves. A person who can't think for themselves. So a person who has mental disabilities, in a sense that they can't think for themselves. Now, why have I mentioned this? Because a person who can think for themselves, it's upon us to know what is part of the Deen. So if we have the opportunity, we are alive, we have akal, we have knowledge, we can gain knowledge, we should learn of what we should do in the Deen. And this is the time to do it. We can't think on the Day of Judgment, I didn't know. Because there was so much time in our lives that we could have found out. And that's why we are accountable as well. Because we have to learn, we have to know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to increase our knowledge in the Quran. It's farz on us to know what's halal and haram, and what we should be doing, not doing. So this is really important, that it's upon us to learn this. And if we don't know, then we're going to only will be punished. We can't say our dads did it, or our parents did it, our forefathers did it. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran so many times, like, don't do what your forefathers did. It might lead you into Jahannam. That's how severe it is. So just ask the question to yourself, like, is there any bid'ah in my life? And if it seems strange, look into it. If there's a question mark in it, look into it. And even if it doesn't, just look into your life and say, I want to know the evidence of this. I want to know the exact evidence of what I'm doing. And if it doesn't have evidence from the Quran and Sunnah, then we should take it out. Because we can't risk our life in this world. Our life can literally be a waste. Even if we made billions of pounds and dollars and we made a big name for ourselves, our life can be a waste if there's shirk and bid'ah in it. A person who has hardly anything and is poor and is on the streets, but his Aqidah is correct, he'll be more successful than this person who has billions and billions and billions, because he has Iman, the correct belief, and he'll go into Jannah. So on this, we should really, really look into our lives and see if there's any bid'ah and take it out if it is. If there's any shirk, take it out. And always, every day, renew our faith and ask for forgiveness. All the major sins, all the minor sins, all the sins we do knowingly, unknowingly, and the ones we do hidden and openly. We shouldn't ever do open sin. Allahu Akbar, we shouldn't ever do open sin. And and something that might draw us into doing these bid'ah and shirk and all these things. As I said, our parents could be doing it, our parents could be teaching it, our parents could be, our grandparents could have done it. So people are dying with this belief, with this bid'ah in their account. How scary is that? And the only way we can do something about it is to save ourselves and the people around us and inform people about this. I don't care if I get so many, because I'm going to put this on YouTube, I don't care if I get so many dislikes and all this and that. All I want to do is just help at least one person. I just want to help, even if it's not in my family, even if it's not any of my friends, even if it's someone that's going to see this once I've left this world, even if it helps one person. Because Rasulullah said, if you have bid'ah, you go straight to Jahannam. So even if one person takes out bid'ah in their life, to me, that would be an accomplishment. So just show this awareness to people. Just tell people, first look at yourself first. Is there any bid'ah in my life? Remove it. Is there any shirk? Remove it completely. You can't have shirk at all in your account. You can't have shirk in your Aqidah. And obviously we should try and remove all the major sins, minor sins and all that. But make sure we take out these two things. 100%. Make sure we take out these two things. Because it will be a means of us going into Jahannam. And this isn't life right now. This isn't life. This is preparation for life. This is preparation for life. Life is eternal in the Akhirah. So you might be preparing just to go Jahannam, or you might be preparing to go Jannah. And doing the things to get to Jannah is difficult. know this, that it's going to be difficult, because Jannah is a great reward. You do the hard work, you get a big reward. You do hardly any work, you go into Jahannam. But Allah SWT make it so easy on us that we get to practice our deen easily, and we get to live in this world easily, harm-free, protected from Allah SWT. And I make this dua for myself and for everyone, that Allah SWT take us into Jannatul Firdaus without any reckoning. Because something I'm scared of is the reckoning. And I'm someone who takes account on a lot of the things I do. And even I'm so scared of meeting Allah SWT on the Day of Judgment. I want to see Allah SWT in Jannah. I want to see Him in Jannah. I'm so scared of seeing Him, because I don't want to go through any of my accounts. Even if I might think that they're okay, I don't know. Allah SWT accept everything, every good deed that I've ever done, and every good deed that anyone's ever done, all the Muslim Ummah have done. But we don't know. That's why I make this dua that Allah SWT take us into Jannatul Firdaus without reckoning. So this is a very, very important message and lesson, to know if we're doing bid'ah, to remove it. If we're doing shirk, take it out. So Allah SWT give us the tawfiq to act upon what we learned and heard, inshallah. And may Allah SWT never allow us to commit shirk and bid'ah. And may us leave this world while Allah SWT is pleased with us. And may us leave this world with the highest level of Iman. And may us all enter Jannah without reckoning. Inshallah, Ameen. Ameen, Ameen. Birahmatika ya Arhamar Rahimin.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله